Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. Well, I have Leslie Gordon Christie on the show today. We met through the podcast. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I am looking forward to having a great session with you because when we met our pre-call, you touched on so many wonderful things and that I felt like you were almost sent to me from the universe because I have been doing quite a bit of work around personally, just on my own self, around the work that you do for many, many women. So I want to hand the floor over to you. Give me and the audience a bit of a background, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, thank you. And we really had a great chat I forgot it was even a podcast interview. Like we hit it off. Anyway, as you know, my name is Leslie Gordon Christie, and I help driven A women reclaim their energy, waistline, zest for life. We do it through personal development is the biggest thing, a little bit of nutrition and lots of fitness. And we do those separately or we do them together. And, a real passion of mine, helping women really step into the version of their highest self, the self that they're just reminding themselves they were, and then getting those goals and reaching those goals in all areas of life to up level. So that's really what I do.
Okay. And so now, is it like sort of a group thing or is it just always individual one-on-one coaching?
WeAreBuffNation.com we have a fitness community for women where they can join, and we do fitness for women over 40. So we talk about things like premenopause, postmenopause, the types of exercise to do. You join us for workouts, they're live. We talk about nutrition. And the biggest thing we talk about, and part of another piece of what we do, is this whole mindset piece and personal development, because it is so key as we go on through our 40s, 50s, and 60s. So much of it is mindset. And so we do that in a group, and we also have individual coaching as well.
So one thing you didn't mention was a little bit of your backstory. So take us through that because I think it's such a great background and amazing pivot that you did.
Yeah, it's a very interesting background because it's so different than what I do now. Is I actually started in news media. I went to school for journalism. I was going to be the next Barbara Walters in my mind. And I studied magazine and I worked in magazine for a while. And then I worked in TV for over a decade, believe it or not, in news. I anchored the news. I reported the news. I was out live on scene. And interesting how things work, because I think a lot of women, type A women, especially in a career where there's different opportunities to up level, you think that the dangling carrot is the next step to feeling fulfilled or feeling amazing. And so for me, that's what it was. And I thought to get there, I hired a coach and I started to work with the Procter Gallagher group. At the time, it was called Life Success Consulting. And what I realized is that I was actually out of alignment with my values. And that was explaining why I was feeling stressed and overwhelmed and off. And so with some coaching, I realized that I was actually put on this earth to, you know, inspire and uplift. And oftentimes through being in the news media, the different news stories you cover, I found myself actually bringing people down. And that's why I was having that internal value conflict. And it was a coach that helped me see that. And once I realized that, I thought, okay, I need to do something that uplifts. And he said to me, the best thing you can do is stay right where you are and grow you. And when you grow you, everything around you will change. And so that's what I did. I got into personal development. I got really into coaching. I started to understand my thoughts, my beliefs, how I saw myself. And as a result, things started to change. And I came up with an idea to start my own business and go back to my, one of my loves, how I put myself through journalism school was actually teaching fitness classes. But I thought what I wanted to add to this fitness community was the personal development and the mindset piece that I had learned about. So I went and trained to become a coach. Back then, life coach wasn't really, really common. It is now, but we're talking maybe 16 years ago. And I was just kind of starting. And so now I take all of those pieces, and that is my business. I have a fitness community, I have a personal development community, and I do one-on-one coaching. And I just see the difference when women start to understand if they can get control of their thinking, they can really start to improve their life in all other areas.
You said something really interesting there where you said when you were doing news, you felt like you were bringing people settled down and that wasn't in alignment with your values. And I often wonder, when you are working with these women, do you feel like they do center themselves around values? How do you identify what your values are? And then how do you, like, as you were saying, align yourself to those values?
Yeah, I remember doing this workbook that one of my coaches gave me, and it was, right. And I still do this because it's a simple way of figuring it out. Write down the things that are important to you, the themes: health, wellness, honesty, integrity. And I
Mhm.
would write all these things down. And then the question was, are you taking the action in line with those values? And a lot of them was no, because I valued my health, but every day I was stressing myself out by working, 12-hour days and going to bed with the news on. Or I was, I didn't think knocking on someone's door after there was a death, trying to find the victim's family and get an interview, that didn't sit well with me. So I was out of alignment. And so just a simple exercise like that, you can say, what is important to you? And, even just having, I remember my coach put down a list of core values, and you can even do a quick Google, what's a core value? And you can see, and then you start to pick them out. And from there, you can do a little test to see, am I living in alignment?
I think everybody should do that exercise. And it doesn't even have to be like where you have 5, 10, 15 values, just a couple of values, but then what is the meaning behind it? And then every day, just sort of do that little check in for yourself. So that's great. So you have kind of a separate program. So you have We Are Buff Nation, which is the fitness side of it. And then, as you mentioned, you're never going to get anywhere you want without that mindset. So talk a little bit about like how, like, does it really become a system? Like, that's how I think. Like, I think everything is a system and it's not just this one thing or that one thing. And so how do you take somebody through a journey of it becoming a system and then just really a lifestyle change?
Yeah, so I love that you're calling it a system, because we like to say it's a system for success, but it is true. So the mindset piece of the personal development side of it is a 6-month program. So I do a 6-month group program with people. And the first part of that program is identifying your values, your goals, all of that. And once you identify that, we start to build a vision, because we know your vision is so important. Where you are going is important. A lot of us might think, okay, this is where I want to go, but we don't get clear. And when you're not clear, it's like taking a road trip. And if you don't have a destination, you sort of drive all over and end up back in your driveway. So the first part is really about identifying where you want and where you want to go. But once you do that and you start to move towards your goals, the most interesting thing is going to pop up. And it's the most powerful thing that can pop up. And that is, your inner program is going to show up, meaning all of your limitations, all of the things that you've been telling yourself over the years. I can't do this. It's not going to work. It's not meant for me. So then we dive into figuring out your limitations. We call it the knowing doing gap. I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. What's in the middle? And what's in the middle is often those stories we tell ourselves. I like to call them pot roast stories. And that comes from an example of a story I tell about a girl making a pot roast, and she cuts the end off the pot roast. She puts it in a pan and she puts it in the oven. And her husband says, "Why are you doing this?" And she says, "My mom did it." So she calls her mom and says, "Why do I do this?" And she said, "Well, my mom does this." And then she calls her grandmother, "Well, my mom did it." And she calls her great great grandmother, who is still alive. And she says, "I did that because, I had a small oven and I needed to fit the pot roast inside the stove." And so the point of that story is, we all have pot roast stories that we believed, but some of them serve us, but a lot of them don't. And until we release those and then put new ones in, we're always going to be not able to get to where we want to go. We're going to start something and stop. We're going to be all in and get frustrated, but we've got to come back to the core programming. So that's a big part of the 6-month program. And then once we get that, we talk about things like self-image for women, right? So how we see ourselves determines what's happening around us. Maxwell Maltz wrote a great book, like, I'm thinking way back, Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's all about how we have a self-image. We have two of them. We have one we show the world, and the other is our true self-image, and the results around you never lie. So if you're struggling with anything in your life, it's often, most of the time, a self-image issue, where we've got to look at what are those stories and how can we rewrite it to move you to where you want to go. So it's really powerful. And when you're ready for it, it's just incredible the shifts I have seen in women when we can get rid of those limitations and replace them with powerful, uplifting thoughts.
And so when we were on our pre-call together, everything you were saying was just like, oh, wow. I love everything you're saying there because it was so relatable to where I was at that moment on my journey of sort of understanding this more of this feminine energy, this feminine leadership, as you were mentioning, and then also this quantum frequency. And so when I asked you, is that kind of like quantum? And you said, well, absolutely. And so take us through the whole when you were with the Proctor Institute. So for everybody listening, Bob Proctor, you probably all heard it, the secret, but you took that like years ago, right?
First of all, when I was introduced to this, it was 16 years ago when nobody was talking about it. So it was even more out there. And I was kind of doing it in secret because I was in the news. And I was at the time, I wasn't as comfortable with it as I am now. But I have to tell you, everything that I learned, I applied to my business and it grew very, very quickly because all I did was apply the principles. And one of the things that Bob teaches, you can never get to your goal from where you are now. You have to go from your goal. Okay. So, what that means, everyone listening, is if you're wanting to release 20 pounds or if you're wanting to get a promotion, it's not about standing at the bottom of the mountain and looking up and thinking, how am I going to get up there? Okay. I know about SMART goals and small steps. This has nothing to do with that. It's going to the top of the mountain, imagining what the top of the mountain looks like, going and using your imagination, because that's how we create in the world. Anything of any significance already started in your imagination. The chair that you're sitting on, the car that you're driving in. Okay. So you got to go there in your imagination. And that's the feminine energy. Okay. That's the vision. That's when we say feminine energy. That's what we mean, the feminine energy. And you have to do that before you do the masculine or the hustle. So you go there, and every day you go there, you sit there, you think, okay, if I had released 20 pounds, who would I be? How would I act? Well, I would probably plan my meals out. I would probably take time to do my workouts. I would do my walks. I would be kind to myself. So you can do all this. You can write a list, and you've got to go there in your imagination, almost like a movie. And when you do that, for a few days in a row or even longer, you're going to get pops of inspiration. And that's when you take the inspired action. You don't do the action you think you should do. You take the action that comes through your intuition. Intuition is one of our mental muscles, and that's how a higher intelligence can speak with us, but we've got to be quiet enough to hear the answer. When we hear the answer, then we move on that. We don't delay, we take the action. So you might have the answer of, I bet if I get up in the morning and I walk before breakfast and then I go again at night, that's really going to help me. And so you'll go and do that. Or I've got the inspiration that I'm going to focus on lots of fruits and vegetables local. I'm going to have lean protein. Maybe for you, that's what's going to work. Or if it's something for, a salesperson, this is where I'm going to start to do some cold calling, or I'm going to go here and I'm going to talk to that person. That's what quantum leaping is. It's pretty crazy. And you just step into it. And we also do something called a self-image script. And Lynette, I know we chatted briefly about this, but it's a really powerful tool because it's about that vision. It's about thinking of who you want to show up as and being clear, because the first law of the universe is order. And if we're not clear, if we close our eyes and we think of, our refrigerator and we can see everything inside our fridge, that's a clear image. But if you think about where you want to go and the person you want to be, if that's not clear, we're just going to default to old programs. So we want to be clear. So we want to write down, who do I want to show up as a mother? How do I want to show up as a partner? How do I want to live my fittest and most amazing life? How do I want to show up in my career? The kind of speaker I want to be. And then you look at that every day and you go into your imagination. And that will allow you to manifest or bring it into you. The research is really clear on visualization. I just did I was talking to, I think they were 65 plus locally here, and I was talking to them about visualization and that amazing study with 4 groups of Olympians. One group they did 75% physical and 25 mental. The second group did like 50-50. This third group did a lower version. And then the fourth group did mostly mental with a little physical. And the one that did the mostly mental actually did the best.
One of the things I think about is how hard it is to stay in that mindset. So often we'll get this little intuition, but sometimes I don't know, we get maybe too busy in our day or something like that. And we just we miss them. So how do you how do you help somebody slow down to even get into that vision, I guess? And then, because like you said, everything first starts in the imagination, but how do I take myself there? Like, what happens if I feel so stuck that I can't get there?
Okay. First of all, what I like to explain to people is if you're starting something and stopping, or you find it difficult to slow down, that is what we call in coaching your paradigm. Okay. Your
Right.
program. And 96 to 98% of everything you do is a subconscious program. So if you find you're falling off or you're not able to slow down, it's probably because this is a pattern you've been repeating throughout your lifetime. Yes?
Right.
Probably. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so understanding that is the first thing, because if you're having trouble, it just means, there's a belief in there somewhere that's telling you that you can't slow down. So it's just really about studying that first. I would say developing yourself every day. So what we have in our program, we have a 6 a.m. club, we call it. It's actually at 6:15. And we study, like in the program, we have a manual, you're listening to audios, you're studying this material so you understand intellectually how this all works and why you're having a hard time slowing down. Okay, you have to understand that first in order to slow down. And once you start to see that everything on the outside was just a reflection on the inside, and the only way to make a shift is to adjust the inside, then you know that it's time well spent, because nothing's going to change if you keep doing the old. So once you get that, then you're invested and you can start to say, okay, I do need to slow down in order to speed up, because we have connection to incredible intelligence. And we can ask a question. The quality of our results have to do with the quality of questions we ask. But the answer comes and we're too busy to hear it, right? So,
Yeah.
in order for us, and I know for me, after my father passed away, I started to study meditation. So, I do transcendental meditation twice per day. And I can say unequivocally, when you slow down, life goes so much better because you can take less action and get better results because you're not wasting your time trying to make things happen. You're actually
Just being
inspired.
busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about this transcendental
Meditation.
meditation. Yeah.
Yeah. So transcendental meditation, it's a technique that it's taught. It's been around forever, and it's about there's different types of meditation, and all do different things. And what's great about transcendental meditation is there's lots of science behind it. Strengthens the frontal lobe. It strengthens decision making. It strengthens focus. And focus is important when you're trying to. Your question was, how do I stay in that state? Developing your focus will allow you to do that. So despite what's happening around you, you'll be able to come back to your vision. And so transcendental meditation, it's not for profit. You can look it up. You have to work with a meditation teacher. And it's a technique that's done twice a day for 20 minutes. And it's a mantra based. So what the great thing about transcendental meditation is, if you thoughts come in, it just means your body's releasing stress and you don't interpret that. That's just how the process
Okay.
works. And that's why I love it. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
actually heard Marianne Williamson talking about it. And she was saying in a talk, if you're serious about, your spiritual growth and moving forward, you have to find a way to quiet your mind. You have to
Mhm.
find a way to quiet your mind. Otherwise, you're not going to really get that connection with the infinite. And so that's what I've been doing. It's probably almost been 9 years. And so one of the first things I do with people when I start working with them is I try to get them to slow down, right? Just like you asked, like, let's be intentional. Let's breathe. Let's just start with 5 minutes, and then slowly they can move up. And I find as people go through the mindset program, they're able to be quiet. When they start, they're not. But then by the end of the 6 months, okay, they can be quiet and they're surprised. I can spend time by myself. I can sit in silence. I can meditate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like everything that you were just saying there, I caught myself taking a deeper breath and just kind of slowing down. But sometimes I kind of feel like when people say slow down in order to speed up, it's a hard concept to understand.
Yeah. So when you start to get pops of inspiration, then you take the action, because things aren't going to happen if you just sit there and visualize it. You've got to take the action because we live in a physical body. We're spiritual beings in a physical body, so we have to take physical action to get physical results. However, the inspiration will give you the what to do next. I remember doing this when I was leaving the news. I was studying this material and I wrote down on my goal card, because when we teach in Proctor Gallagher, we talk about a goal card. You put your goal on your card and you look at it all the time, and you become what you focus on. You do. So I would do that, and I would do it in my bathtub, and I would get pops of inspiration of things to do, do this, do this. And that my goal was to hit all these numbers. And when I got those pops of inspiration, they were different than what the average person would tell you, but you go with your intuition and you do them, and they worked out because I wasn't trying to control the situation, right? I was asking for guidance, which is available to all of us. And then I was being quiet enough to listen. And then I was trusting the process.
So every step of that process that you took, did you feel like you were sort of losing an identity? I ask that because since January, I feel like I've been really focused on this quantum jumping, quantum leaping. And sometimes I feel like a bit of a mess. And I don't know, I feel like do you have to lose the old before you can get the new? Like when you became, when you shifted from, news anchor, news reporter on the trajectory of CNN to, oh, I'm going to work more with my mind and with women, and like how did you take that?
Yeah, you're right. But you get to choose that. There's parts of you right now that are probably serving your new vision. You want to keep those because they're serving you. But the ones that aren't, you want to let them go. Like I know for me, for example, what wasn't serving me is working the long hours that I did and always like I knew reading the news first thing in the morning and read and watching it right before bed would not serve the new version of me that was going to inspire women. So I let that go. Right. And that's what we do when we quantum leap, or we talk about the self-image. We write the version of us and we step into it. And that might be a brand new version of you. And that's okay, because you are think of it as your goal is here. And I'm not sure if we're showing video, but I'm putting my hand up and I'm
Yeah,
putting another
yeah,
hand down, right? And your goal is
yeah.
here. And basically everything's vibration. Okay. The law of vibration, the law of attraction. So everything vibrates at a certain frequency, including our thoughts. And so what we want to do is, if your goal is here, it's not vibrating in the same path as you. If it were, you'd have it. You want to grow into your goal, right? You want to become your goal, that version of you that has it, and then that's what happens. So it helps to think about, what does that future version of you look like, and what are they doing every day? Are they getting up and meditating? Are they an early riser? Are they someone who likes to go for a walk right before bed? Are you spending your nights watching Netflix, or are you reading personal development books? You've got to think about those things. And the more you take action right now, the same action that person would be, is the faster the results happen.
Yeah, and then that's that self-image scripting, right? To create that, as you were saying, the higher version of yourself,
Yes.
and then sort of taking the action to get it. So, okay, so that's quantum leaping, frequency work. For every sort of woman who might be listening to this, and is intrigued, but a bit skeptical of frequency work, what could be one thing that they could start today just to align with that higher version of themselves?
Yeah, I love intention setting. Okay. So, intention setting is basically, so there's a little science behind this. The reticular activating system is in your brain, and its job is to filter out information that doesn't serve you and focus on information that's going, whatever it works by, whatever you focus on, that's going to bring you more of. So if you're going to buy a new car, you're probably noticing there's lots of new cars all around you. And it's not that there are more cars on the road, you're just tuned into it. So with intention setting, you basically say before you head into something, my intention is, I teach a class at one of our local colleges, and I'll always drive and I'll say my intention is to get them inspired, to get them connected, and to motivate them. So that's my intention. And by the end of the session, I've hit it because that's what I've focused on. And it could be as simple as my intention today is to have a smooth drive to work, and I want everything to go well and have time to get everything done. Okay. By playing with that, you're actually doing some of that work, but in smaller chunks and ways that may not feel overwhelming.
Yeah. Do you think, Leslie, that um, let's say, okay, so I'm listening to the podcast. I have my own business. I'm a midlife woman, and I feel like the business is going really well. And what would you say to somebody that just said that to you? Like, oh, yeah, no, I think everything is going really well. How would you encourage them to continue to do the work, to do that self-image scripting?
Yeah, I would say because this is what's really interesting is we were put on this earth, I truly believe, to grow and expand. Think about when your kids were little and they were learning to walk. After they learned to walk, they probably ran, and then they rode a bike, and then they were driving a car. And
Yeah.
so when we're not growing, and think of a time in your life when you're not growing, you don't feel as fulfilled. You might feel a little bit stuck even. So the thing is, we're constantly moving, whether we're moving forward or we're moving backwards, we're never standing still. So even if you're happy with what is going on, when you align with the laws of the universe, that's when life really, really works for you. So even if things are going well, you can say, okay, what's going to move me to the next level? How can I serve even better? What's the next thing I'm going to work on? And by doing that, you're going to keep moving forward. And we talk about goals. We talk about goals. There's A, B, and C type goals. An A goal is a goal that you've already done and you know you can do it. A B goal is a goal you haven't done, but you think you can do it. For example, maybe your A goal is you've got this job and then you've been offered a job at another company that's really the same pay grid and it's also the same kind of work. That would be a B type goal. A C type goal is the goal that you deep down really want. For example, when you get quiet enough to learn that about yourself, you really, really want it. You have no idea how you're going to do it, but oh my gosh, it's going to inspire you. And so I would say to that person, what type of goals are you setting? And how could we get you setting more C type goals? Because the goals are not about the get, they're about the growth. And as
Yeah.
you grow, you're going to feel deeply fulfilled and you're going to feel totally on purpose.
Yeah. Okay. I absolutely love that. It's such a nice way of thinking. How, when you think, so we talk all about like just being that vibration, right? Getting everything you want is already here. That is the Proctor sort of mindset or philosophy, I guess. So how do you think a woman who might be listening to this podcast that is looking for that growth, doesn't have her own business, or, maybe she doesn't even want to have a side hustle. She just wants to maybe make a big life change or a life change in midlife. I mean, we all know in midlife, we always have some sort of identity shift, right? Your kids have moved out, maybe you've had a death, maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a job loss, whatever, or maybe it's just finally now you get the time to like focus on yourself. How can you, like, when you think about it's already there, how can they tap into that to know what that change could be?
Yeah, so I think it begins first with choosing a direction, but actually asking yourself, what do I really want? And this is scary for people. This is scary because sometimes you don't want to answer that. And we go through life and we don't answer that. But again, the quality of your results have to do with the quality of questions you ask. So I would say, all right, show me what really lights me up. Like, let's do it. And then wait for
Yeah.
those answers to come and you're going to get pops of inspiration. I truly believe in connecting with your higher power, whatever that is for you, but this is when you can't do things alone. You have to go to a higher source and you ask, but then you can't be afraid to hear the answer. You can't be afraid to hear the
Right.
answer because it's going to move you to where you want to go, but maybe there's things that we have to let go of first to make room for all the things that are going to light us up and move us forward.
Okay, light us up. How can you help a midlife woman who's probably going through some like we just don't look the same. We're thinking a little bit differently. We might have a little bit of menopause, premenopausal like impacts to us. And I just feel like I'm tired. I don't want to start over. I don't want to begin, something new. How do you encourage them to? Because I think the mission of this podcast is to inspire that action, right? And through stories that you're sharing, other guests have shared, I truly believe that every midlife woman needs something for herself. It doesn't have to be a hustle. It doesn't have to be, a new business, but somehow we have to take care of that 80-year-old version of us, but we have to take care of that person now. How do you get that person to believe that and to get started down that path?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is probably going to seem a little maybe off. I could say, okay, you watch your food, you do this, you do that. But I think you really have to start to get your vibration balanced. And you do that, I would say, a gratitude practice first to ground yourself so you can uplift your vibration. Because when say you're in a really low state, it's impossible for you to see on that vibration what's going to really light you up and what's going to move you forward. So you almost have to take some time and commit to really noticing what's happening in your life that's amazing. So yes, your body's going through changes, but you know what? That stomach, what it brought you, your kids, and how strong you are, we've got to start seeing and celebrating ourselves first. And our vibration raises and we can understand there's so much more. First of all, we'll understand how blessed we are, which is a wonderful place to start from. And then we can start to see, what is ahead for us. And we can take simple things like, practicing our gratitude, taking some quiet time. If you're not reading personal development right now, everybody, get yourself a book and start reading at least 5 to 10 minutes a day, because unless we're putting in new messages, you're not going to want to make the change. If you're reading the old stuff or you're watching all the media that's out there with all the, telling us how we should live or how we should look, that's not going to make you feel good. But instead, fill your days with things that do make you feel good. And then you can start to figure out, what the next version of you is going to look like. And the fun thing is, you get to choose that.
Yeah. What books would you recommend? Maybe they're not quite grasping the quantum leaping, the frequency work, the mindset shifts and stuff. Where would you start a beginner?
I would say the best book that I ever read, and I still share it with all my clients, and it's free. It's called The Game of Life and How to Play It by
Okay.
Florence Scovel Shinn. And you can just Google it and pull it down. And it's a phenomenal book. And I think it was written early 1900s. A lot of these terms, quantum leaping and vibration work, this stuff has been around forever, but we've given it fancy names. I always like to go back to the basics of where this came from rather than going into interpretation. So I would start and I would do that book. There's also a phenomenal book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And so I read that at the very beginning, and that was incredible. And that gets you really thinking about understanding that you can program your mind for success, but you've got to be willing to do the work. It's not physical work. It's not like you have to do physical work, but you do have to, let go of the limitations and start to put new ones in. So those are the two books that I say are phenomenal. And obviously there's, Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. That's by Bob Proctor. That's another good one. So those three can get you started to understand how your thinking creates your results and how a lot of that thinking is a program and is subconscious. And until you become aware of that, you can't really change it.
And what you're saying, Leslie, then is feed the subconscious. Like, is that,
Yes,
how
exactly.
do we,
Yeah,
okay. So
exactly.
everything
That's
that we consume, see, watch is feeding the subconscious. And then that's going to be the response when you do start to get a little bit quiet, you start to lead with your intuition. Is your intuition always right?
Okay, so first to answer your question about subconscious. So
Yeah.
we have a conscious mind and we have the subconscious mind. And the conscious mind, is gives you the ability to decide what you want to focus on, see, hear, smell, taste and touch. But then the subconscious mind is actually the program, and that's the one where we say is 96 to 98% gives us our results. Inside the subconscious mind is all of the stories you've told yourself over the years, things that have happened to you, responses. And so that's what we call your paradigm, where your paradigm is. And it's very similar to a thermostat in a home that's set at 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so say your thermostat is set to 65 degrees Fahrenheit and there's a snowstorm outside, that is still going to be 65 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Right?
Right.
So if you want to change the temperature in the house, do you go outside and yell at the weather? No, right? Yeah, you change the thermostat. And so
Right.
when we do coaching work, we are reprogramming our subconscious mind for success. We are releasing what doesn't serve us and we are putting new information in it. With everything you talk about, whether it's quantum leaping, vision work, it's all the same thing, but that's essentially what we're doing. And so those books that I suggested talk about that so you can understand, okay, this is what I've got to do and to release that program and to move forward. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay, we are Buff Nation. What would you recommend I start? Where would I start first with you?
Okay. So the first thing, it depends on if you're wanting fitness, if you're wanting personal development, but I would say you just go book a call. We've got lots of resources on our site for personal development and fitness, but you can just book a call and hop on with one of our team members and we can see what your goals are and what would be a good fit for you to help you move towards where you want to go and just really have fulfillment, not just in that one goal, but improve your relationships, improve your finances, improve your health, improve your career. Because once you do one area, it spills over to the other.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So it's wearebuffnation.com.
That's right. Yeah, you can go there. And BUFF stands for beautiful, unique, fearless female, by the way.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Actually, I forgot that. So thanks for clarifying that. So Leslie, what's next for you?
Oh my goodness. I have lots of C type goals that I
Yeah.
am moving
Okay.
towards. Yeah, I'm doing lots of speaking engagements, and that's my goal is to get in front of many women, and just impact and inspire them to step into the best version of themselves. Yeah.
I love that. And that was a good reminder. I think I feel like I need to sit down and do some more C type goals. I have set some, but yeah, I'm all over it. All right. Well, I'm going to be checking out the website a little bit more. And thank you so much for joining me today. You have an amazing story. It's wonderful. Thanks for sharing your message.
So fun, Lynette. Wonderful to connect with you.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.